Our next candidate this evening for our conversation is Michael Ingram. Michael, welcome to the forum. Lovely to have you and to have someone of such a young age entering into the fray and being part of this conversation. We've split up the evening into three sections. The first is on your personal biography. The second is on the tactics that you would pursue as mayor specific to your policies that you would like to pursue. And the third is on your philosophy of leadership. So we're going to dive right in. And if you could, in 90 seconds, please give us your elevator pitch on who you are, your background and qualifications, and why you're the most qualified candidate to serve as the next mayor of the city of St. Petersburg.
Hi, my name is Michael Ingram. I was born and raised here in St. Pete, and as you can probably tell, I'm a young candidate. But young people are one of the most underrepresented groups in all of politics. If you look at any of our houses of the federal or state government, even if you look at our local government, we don't have young people getting involved. And young people, we're the ones who are going to see the result of what policies are made today. We're the ones who are going to be here 50, 60, 70, 80 years from now, seeing the result of what we did. So why shouldn't young people be getting into politics now, getting what we want to see done now? That way, we're not just leaving a better world for ourselves, like I said, 80 years from now. That way, we're also there to be held accountable when the next generation comes into politics. They can still look at us and say either thank you for what you did or blame us for what we did wrong. We're there to be held responsible still.
Thank you very much. There's a famous architect from Miami, this is my editorial, who said that every decade that you age, you should have proportionately less voting power because you will not be here as long to appreciate. So you can include that in your pitch, Michael. Related to your own personal story, can you talk about your vision for St. Petersburg's relationship to the Tampa Bay region, the rest of the country, and how you would position the city to be a community of consequence throughout the United States? A 60-second answer, please.
St. Pete is really, I would say, the most inclusive city in all of Florida, potentially even the whole United States. I would like to see us continue like that, not just being inclusive to various groups, but being inclusive to everyone regardless of whatever they're going through in life. As we're growing, we're also seeing things like rent prices rising. I want to see St. Pete become a model city for growing from the bottom up. I want to set an example for what our country can be doing for growing from the bottom up. Just because we're getting bigger and because we've become more vibrant of a city doesn't mean we need to be pushing out people. I've got family friends, personal friends, who don't live in the St. Petersburg area anymore because they simply can't afford to do it. Some of them are younger people who can't, for example, on a teacher's salary afford to be here. And some of them are either retired or just on Social Security, and that's not paying enough for people to stay where they've grown up.
Super, thank you. On to the tactical questions. The city currently has an economic development strategy targeting 5 sectors. Is that still relevant in a post-COVID world? And if not, how does the region approach economic development moving forward, particularly in partnering with educational institutions in the area to create a pipeline of readiness for the economic opportunities of the 21st century? A 60-second answer, please.
We need to be making sure that we're not just looking at the city in certain areas. We need to be going on a smaller scale basis. This might take more effort, but what we're getting out of that is a more direct approach, addressing individuals or very specific groups, as opposed to just addressing an area of the city. So as we look at individuals, we're better preparing individuals instead of parts of the city for what we need to be doing. We need to be growing, again, from the bottom up, which starting with helping individual people. You can't focus on those who need it most if you're only focusing on certain areas of the city instead of the people who do need it most.
Thank you. Do you believe climate change poses a specific threat to St. Petersburg? And related to that, a lot of debate about the city's coastal high hazard area. Can you speak to your thoughts on how we responsibly develop and redevelop such a large percentage of the city's land located in this zone, and what role our next mayor has to lead that conversation? A 60-second answer.
We are a coastal city. Much of St. Pete is at such a low elevation that as sea level change happens, and we're seeing that, yes, this is something that will be happening, within my lifetime, there are parts of St. Pete that might not exist anymore and will simply be underwater. For example, Beach Drive may not exist when I'm older. We need to be protecting our coastlines with a living coastline. We don't need to be spending money on any shore or seawalls that will be damaged in storms and that we need to pay constant money to ensuring that they stay in a good state. We need to be producing mangroves. We need to have seagrass beds, as that is what's going to keep us safe and also reinvigorate our environment.
Thank you. 2015 and 2016 saw significant sewage overflows into particularly this area of St. Petersburg, resulting in a 2017 state consent order requiring hundreds of millions of dollars in improvements, with as much as $2 billion to go over the next 2 decades. What is your position on the need for future funding and where that funding will come from? A 60-second answer, please.
That funding is essential to seeing the future of the Tampa Bay area from an ecological standpoint. And I feel that was really an issue that was caused by previous mayors looking at the issue and thinking, this won't happen for me. I won't be here anymore to see this. Again, I'm young. I will be here to be held accountable for anything that happens like this. You only have a few mayors back that you can go back and blame. But really, this has been a problem that we've had for decades. And it really needs to be something that's addressed. The funding sources, we need to be pulling money from everywhere we can to be addressing this issue as quick as we can, because any future releases or deep well injections of improperly treated sewage is super harmful to our environment and will not result in us having a good future.
Thank you. 2017, we saw Hurricane Irma with over 6 million people fleeing the state of Florida. Since then, the state and St. Petersburg has only grown. What are your ideas to improve shelter-in-place options in the event of major storms in the city of St. Petersburg? A 30-second answer, please.
We need to be making sure that we have capacity for everyone in our city. It doesn't matter how many people there are in this specific area. We need to be investing in shelter in place for that area. We don't need to be looking at, oh, does our city have enough? We need to be making sure that every neighborhood has somewhere nearby, because some people can't afford to go all the way across St. Pete, take all the stuff that they need to be able to make it through this time, and they need to be able to have somewhere local that they can get to stay safe.
Thank you. How could you assure residents that current development, especially high-rise downtown development, can adequately be handled by our public infrastructure? 30-second answer.
One of the things we need to be looking at is, as we're developing with our high-rises, we need to be making sure that we're not just leaving behind people. Either we have to make sure that there is reliable access, because those people will need to be served at things like restaurants, and they'll need to be able to get around to get produce and things like that. We need to make sure we're working on our public transport system and our affordable housing. That way there are people in St. Pete who can be living here, because if we just have the people who can afford to live in the downtown condos, that doesn't leave anyone left in St. Pete in order to work the day-to-day jobs that run our city.
Thank you. Related to downtown and the large-scale development that our zoning generally allows for, how do you propose that we keep the Main Street feeling of Central Avenue and the historic charm of the entire city that makes St. Pete so special? A 60-second answer, please.
We need to be making sure that our zoning isn't allowing for outside businesses to just come in and build essentially strip malls in the parts of St. Pete that have made St. Pete what it is. Central Avenue, the Warehouse District, Beach Drive, those are downtown's most well-known hotspots of local businesses. So we need to be making sure that our zoning isn't allowing for any of these retail chains or whatever it may be to come in and just develop the hell out of it. We need to be making sure that we're encouraging local businesses, people who live in St. Pete, and be investing back into our community. We need to be making sure those are what it is still on Central Avenue and on Beach Drive, because that is what St. Pete is. We are our local businesses.
Thank you. How do you plan to control the rising cost of living in St. Petersburg? Locals are being priced out of the market due to rapidly increasing rents, skyrocketing real estate prices, and stagnating salaries. 60-second response, please.
St. Pete's current average rent price is higher than a 40-hour work week or a full month salary at minimum wage of a 40-hour work week employee. We need to be making sure that our affordable housing, we're developing several affordable housing projects. We need to be making sure that every single one of these projects is providing housing at a rate that's 1/4 of the monthly salary of a full-time worker at minimum wage. Because there's no reason that you should be spending half your salary or more just to have somewhere to live. That doesn't give you any money to be able to get to or from work and to take care of your needs, especially as a country we're seeing that we need to be moving to a healthcare policy and other policies that are inclusive for everyone and affordable for everyone. That needs to start at our city with somewhere to live.
So that's a good segue for our next question. And to your point, 37% of our population, equivalent to 40,000 households, are paying more than 30% of their monthly income on housing. What are your strategies for both the renter and the buyer and the builder and the developer to address this really significant and growing need in our population? A 60-second answer.
We need to be making sure that this is an issue that's being taken care of, especially with new developments. New developments often aren't being done affordably. We're looking at new developments like the high-rises that are being built in St. Pete that are priced out of the range of anyone under probably the 80th percentile. We need to be looking at new developments that are creating new housing that is affordable, properly affordable, by someone at the median salary, at someone making $2 over minimum wage. We need to be creating zoning that is encouraging this kind of development instead of either high-end development, which is pricing people out, or the clearing of several lots to build McMansions and other things that we've seen, and the gentrification of some of our neighborhoods.
Thank you. You've said the decision on how to move forward with the redevelopment of the Tropicana field site should be left to the next mayor. Assuming that is you, what details can you give us on your process and priorities in making something happen, and how that will differ from the current process that the Christman administration has been pursuing over the past 2 years? A 60-second answer, please.
The Christman administration has done a good job of making sure that the redevelopment of the Trop site includes things like affordable housing, the preservation of the environment there, like Booker Creek. But we really need to be focusing in fully on that affordable housing. Some of the projects that were selected by Rick Christman include hotels with huge capacities, which instead of building that, which, well, there is need for this in St. Pete, as we are a tourist-based economy largely, we need to be making sure that we're not just bringing in tourists, but that we can keep the people who've grown up and lived here, especially as Tropicana was once the gas plant district, and those people were moved out in order to build Tropicana Field. We need to be making sure that everyone can afford to live back in St. Pete.
Thank you. And then the last section this evening is on the philosophy of your leadership. Our first question, there has been a long and challenging relationship between the city of St. Petersburg and the Tallahassee Republican majority in our state capital. How do you plan on working with that Republican majority to greater benefit St. Petersburg? A 30-second answer.
There are issues that, while reaching across the aisle can be hard, it is something that needs to be done sometimes. There are things that you don't compromise, issues that are too important to just let someone else have in order to get something else back. There are also issues that both parties care a lot about, issues that we need to work on together to bring in funding, to bring in projects, to make sure that St. Pete's growing properly. That can't only be done on the city level and does need work from the outside. That doesn't mean that we compromise on stuff.
Thank you. What is the role of the citizenry in generating the city's annual budget? A 60-second response.
The role of the citizenry is important everywhere. The citizens are the ones who elect city councilors. They elect the mayor. They elect every elected official in the city, in the county. We are the ones, when we vote, who are going to be the ones to decide what the budget is. You vote on a candidate not as a popularity contest, but on the issues that you want to see taken care of. The more you vote on the issues that you want to see taken care of, the more those issues get taken care of.
Thank you. The city's single largest annual expenditure is on law enforcement. How would you ensure that the St. Pete Police Department is a transparent, accountable body for all citizens, including particularly for the city's minority population? A 60-second response.
I would like to see St. Pete's Police Department with a body cam on every officer, because accountability is one of the most important things for us to see from our law enforcement. They're here to protect us. We need to be making sure that's all that's going on. I'm not saying that there are issues with the police department, but we have to make sure that there's no possibility of issues with the police department. I'd also like to see an individual not attached to the police department body that would go in and look at any issues that come up. If a complaint's filed with an officer, it's not taken care of by the police department because they might have a mentality of, we have to protect our own. It's an issue that needs to be looked at independently, looked at properly, and looked at fairly.
Thank you. And our last question tonight, Rick Christman has served the city for nearly 8 years as our mayor. Can you reflect with us your thoughts on what Mayor Christman has done well, where he has fallen short, and what you've learned from observing his leadership that will inform how you would serve the community as our mayor? 90-second response, please.
Being young, especially when I first got into politics, I saw Rick Christman as an infallible man, which is easy to do when you're young. But as I've come to get into politics properly and learn more and pay attention to the fine details, there are cracks. Rick Christman was mayor for several years before the sewage issue came up. That is something that should have been addressed before it became such an issue. There are other issues too. The handling of the raise. That is something that should have been either left closer to the deadline for the mayor to be selected, as that being a major issue that they're handling, or something that should have been handled with city council, not something that the mayor should have gone off on alone. We need to be making sure that our future mayors are being accountable to the people and being transparent.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Ingram, please give him a warm round of applause. Thank you.